Welcome back to the Human Perspective. Today we're going to be interviewing Ola Ojewumi, who many of you may have been seeing on Twitter and Facebook. And I've been really excited to be learning more about her over the last year or two. So welcome to our program, Ola.
Thanks for having me.
So could you have a very interesting backstory? Could you give us a little bit of information about who you are?
Well, I would say I'm a local activist for disability rights. I became disabled when I was 11 as a result of a heart and kidney transplant, and I'm a wheelchair user because of a rare disease that I have. And all of this kind of pushed me towards activism based on the discrimination I felt as a youngster.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the discrimination you faced.
Okay, the day I became an activist was when I was 15 years old, and I was denied an elevator key to my fourth floor high school. And my student government teacher, eventual student government teacher, saw me huffing and puffing at the time, and she asked me.
You used to walk?
Yes. And she asked me what was wrong, and I said, I can't keep doing this. Passing out in school, and the administration continued to block. So my student government teacher, brought me around different politicians, me and other students, to open houses to meet different politicians, and I wrote the school board, and immediately I got the key, and they appointed me to serve on an advisory board to the Prince George's County school system on disability.
You learned at an early age that activism can work.
Yes.
And you were also lucky that you had a teacher who understood and supported what you were doing.
Yes.
I think that's a very important lesson. If that teacher hadn't supported you, what do you think would have happened?
I think I would have suffered in silence for years and years. Having a mentor like her really opened my eyes and changed my life.
It's now 11 years later, and maybe you could talk a little bit about the journey that you've been on, because you've been doing some great things. Maybe you could talk a little bit about hashtag Black Girl Magic.
Okay, so in February I started a campaign called Black Disabled History and Disabled Black Girl Magic. I wrote an article for Self Magazine about the experiences of Black women with disabilities and the intersection of race, gender, and disability, and how that provides us with a unique experience as we have to battle the triple-headed monster of racism and ableism. And so what I did for 28 Days of Black History Month was I provided a fun fact on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram about an African American person who made history. And I repeated the same campaign, hashtag Disable Women's History, for March, which is Women's History Month, and I provided 31 facts. And it really took off, and a lot of people who didn't previously know how big of an impact people with disabilities have made on American history now know. And Al Jazeera AJ Plus reported on it, and they did a video on it. You can still see it on AJ Plus on Facebook about the impact of the campaign.
And we'll put that up also, so that viewers will be able to have that information when this goes up. Tell me a little bit more about why you got into doing this.
There really is a drought of support for women with disabilities, and particularly women of color with disabilities. And I wanted to bring to the forefront how we can't be what we can't see. And unless we see these people, we can't believe that we can be great. And the potential of people with disabilities is limitless. And the limits are created when our history is suppressed and ignored.
I believe that one of the reasons that's so important for us to be telling our stories is for the millions of disabled people who are out there who are not necessarily part of any group for various reasons. So what have you seen as some of the outcomes of all the work that you've been doing? Have you been hearing from more people? Have you been seeing people using your example and coming forward and talking more about the three-headed monster as you're describing it.
Yes. Recently, there was an article about um, a local government official in Australia who equated the N word to the D word, disabled. And naturally, black people with disabilities, a number of us were angry because people don't understand the intersections of race and disability and how the N word should never be compared to any slur. And there was large backlash about that on the internet. And so I have heard from African Americans with disabilities how much speaking out against, institutionalized racism in the disability community, how much speaking out against that can change things. I was very upset with the article, and I needed to use social media to spread the message that there is a racialized disabled experience in this country. And for example, I use the example of lynchings. Oftentimes, African American men and women, particularly African American men who had intellectual disabilities, were often lynched. And it was easier to pin phony charges on, someone who was deemed, quote unquote, a moron, who didn't know his place because of his race.
Right.
That is an experience unique to the Black experience as a disabled person. And people need to understand and know our history.
How do you want to proceed in helping to continue to advance this discussion? Because I think you're raising really very important points, and I think obviously they need to be coming from within communities who've been affected, who can discuss racial discrimination coupled with discrimination and racial discrimination and discrimination based on disability. Do you have any future plans of how you and others want to continue to advance this discussion?
There is a small and mighty tribe of people with disabilities, Black people, people of color, that are actually doing the work on the ground. And the way that I plan on doing it is continuing in policy work. I have a number of women of color that I meet with and collaborate with to not only just increase the presence of Black women with disabilities in public policy, in the disability rights community, but in the nation at large. So these go from joining with the Black Lives Matter movement, which is a movement. They have a commitment to, and Black Lives Matter is an actual 501c3 nonprofit,
right,
which is what a lot of people don't understand. So I want to work with organizations to bring issues like the fact that disabled women are more likely to be abused,
right,
than
sexually abused.
Yes, and that changes when you get into race. And so I'm a storyteller as a writer. I've written for CNN, Huffington Post, Glamour magazine. I can tell my story, but my goal as an activist is to not just tell my story, but pass the mic and allow my counterparts to do the same.
So I think this is a very important issue because disability cuts across so many different areas. There are hundreds of different types of disabilities, people from all racial backgrounds, sexual orientation, religious groups. And I feel like there is a sincere need to be able to really both learn about your individual community. So I'm a Jewish disabled woman and have been doing work also within the Jewish community because, like all other communities, there are biases towards disabled individuals. And being able to come together and really share different things within these different communities, I think, is really important. Are you doing work with people like Sandy Ho and Alice Wong and some of those women?
I've been doing work with women like Camila Martin Proctor, women like Tracy Garner,
Okay.
and women like Claudia Gordon. And I have a small nonprofit, Project Ascend, and we provide college scholarships to disabled youth. And they're not just given a blank check. They're required to participate in the lobby day to bring their stories to their individual members of Congress. And we've even hosted them in the Obama White House. But collaborating with women of color with disabilities to increase our presence in a mainstream way. I will be launching a podcast within the next few months, which will feature interviews with women of color with disabilities, and it's going to flip the script on inspiration porn. So,
talk a little bit more. What is inspiration porn?
Inspiration porn is kind of the fetishization of using disabled bodies as inspirations just for the fact that they are disabled. I ask my friends, why are you inspired by a person with an intellectual disability becoming prom king or queen? How does this disabled person just living their life inspire you? Are you using their perceived hardship to make you feel better about your life because someone else has it worse in your mind? So changing that narrative of disability being a bad thing and being something you should look down on people for. I mean, people with disabilities, privilege is not a race. Just because you use a wheelchair or you have a hidden disability. There can be people with disabilities that are far more privileged than you and you wouldn't even know it. But just looking at them and seeing their chair, you have diminished their entire existence and relegated it to that disability alone.
So I have found that these kinds of discussions within communities like you are really important, and that they take a lot of work, because getting people to understand what we're talking about is really difficult, because they've grown up their whole life, looking at those of us with disabilities not in an equal way. And so I think it's going to be really important as you move forward with your blogging and your Twittering and Instagramming and everything to really be able to have discussions that go on for long periods of time. Because discrimination is something that's taken centuries to evolve, and we're lucky that we have laws in the United States to protect us, but in reality, laws in themselves don't make a difference unless people understand what their rights are and how to use them. I want to end on a little lighter note. I saw this on one of your articles. The best way to dispel the myth that some men want to be needed to feel like a man is to become a disabled woman. See how long it takes homie to make his exit. I read that and I started laughing out loud. So tell me a little bit about that.
I've been using my social media not just as a platform for public policy, but to talk about dating and relationships and how hard it is to be a young woman in your 20s and be a woman with a disability and date and see, how people view disability, and how when you go on dates in your chair as opposed to walking, how much it influences whether someone chooses you as valuable. It's having a disability. It's common. I actually posted some charts that Black women with disabilities, regardless of what type, auditory, visual, cognitive, or physical, they are the least likely to get married. And there's a reason why, because unfortunately in our society there's a value system, and if you are on the bottom of the totem pole, what value do you hold in a relationship? They can provide you with all the love you want and need, but because of their physical bodies,
or people's perceptions of who we are,
yes,
what we can and can't do. Well, I laughed about this because this could have been written by any disabled woman. And another time I'll tell you a story of my experience in the area of dating and looking to date a Jewish guy. So again, we're finished. I'm sorry. We're going to put information up so that you can continue to follow Ola and learn about the great work that you're doing. And I'm so proud that we were able to do this today. And I look forward to doing more with you.
Thank you so much. Can I just plug one last thing?
Sure.
I will be appearing in the Indomitable documentary in 2020. It is a documentary by disabled people for disabled people, and the directors have given all of us a small mini GoPro camera to document our lives and what
Wonderful.
it really means to be disabled.
Wow, when is it going to come out?
2020.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
See you all again.